Welcome back to KOAN Hot Talk, 1080 AM, 95.1 FM, The Joe Miller Show. We have with us mayoral candidate, Anchorage, Amy Demboski. Amy, thank you for coming on the show. Welcome back.
Thanks for having me on the show, Joe.
So your campaign's looking good. You've got lots of signs up across Anchorage, many of them defaced. That was the subject of an article that we put out this weekend concerning you actually personally catching a sign vandal. Can you tell our audience what happened?
Yeah, absolutely. So about 3:30 yesterday, I had driven by one of our signs on 5th Avenue, and in fact, it was fine. But then I had heard about 30 minutes later it had been defaced in broad daylight. Someone had gone up with a knife, cut my picture out of both sides of it and my first name. And so what we recognized in the course of about a 24-hour period, broad daylight, we had about 24 by 8 that had been slashed and my picture taken out and my name taken off. And it seemed like the perpetrator was systematically going through the city of Anchorage, just wreaking havoc. And so a little while later, I had the opportunity. We had a number of citizens that were volunteering and deciding to, sit on these signs to see if we could figure out who was doing this. And I made the decision that I was going to go sit on one, and I chose one on fireweed. And believe it or not, 15, 20 minutes later, the guy showed up. And we had video footage of him from earlier in the day from a location where he had defaced the sign. So we knew the make and model of the car, and we knew his general appearance. So when he pulled up right away, he jumped out of his car and approached the sign with a box cutter. And I proceeded to, I was on the phone with someone. I asked him to call 911, and I proceeded to indicate to the gentleman he should desist. And then, I snapped a couple pictures of him while I was walking towards him. And then I turned on my video camera, and most of the video footage of what you see is me having an interaction with him. And I do have to say, he did. Before I actually got too close to him, he took the knife and he threw it in the front of his car.
Well, we've got the video up, not just the surveillance footage that I think you were referring to with him driving up, parking the car, walking over, coming back with pieces of your signs, but also that interaction that you just described as well as some pictures. And it's pretty extraordinary. I mean, this guy's pretty active, pretty activated, seems to be a little bit politically inclined. What do you know about him? Does he have a record?
Well, I personally had never met the man before. What some of our research is showing is he did have a record of sorts in the past for potentially violating a stalking order and some run-ins with the law, I think, regarding theft or fraud or something to that nature. So I'm not exactly sure 100% what his criminal record was, but I know when I had the interaction with him, the man was very agitated and he was armed and with a box cutter. So it was definitely an interesting situation, and it was one in which it demanded cool and calm, and luckily it was diffused peacefully.
Listening to that interaction with you, I mean, there's been some criticism that you're open carrying. I think that's phenomenal, but you were very cool, calm, and collected. I thought you handled the situation well. You didn't inflame it. Kudos to you. There's nothing that I saw in that interaction that I would have changed had I been in your shoes. Did the cops end up charging him after you provided them with this evidence?
They did. He was charged with criminal mischief. So we only had actual video footage of him with one sign. So we are pretty confident that he, in fact, was the individual defacing multiple of these signs, but we only had video footage of one. So they did charge him with criminal mischief. And, it goes back to the situation of, as Americans, we have a constitutional right to exercise the Second Amendment and carry. And I think with that comes great responsibility. And, it demanded that I was very calm and very deliberate. At no time did I brandish the weapon. Did I put my hand on it? Did I even comment that I had it? But I was open carrying, so it was probably obvious. But nonetheless, the gentleman, he was so enraged about the fact that I put my picture with lipstick on and my name on my sign. He was very inflamed about that, and I just let him talk. And while he was talking, I had my camera on, and I never anticipated that he would say the things that he said. It never occurred to me.
Yeah, it's shocking. I mean, for him to make the sexist comments he made, then he made the comment about another assembly member, of course, that wasn't, shall we say, too positive. And I thought you handled that very well, too. You know, my concern is that this seems to be now the tradition in Anchorage, that if you're the conservative candidate, your signs are going to get defaced. I don't know how many of ours have been defaced in the Anchorage area, despite the fact that we have pretty solid support there. It's just that I don't know, do you think it's the left that's motivating this? Do you think it's orchestrated? Do you have any evidence of that?
Well, you know, I'm not sure of that, but what was disturbing to me was the fact that it was pretty apparent across town. You have 20 4x8s, and these signs are about $200 a piece. You have 20 of these signs across town that are grouped with some of the other candidates, and none of their signs had any of damage of the sort to them. Yet the media says, oh, this kind of stuff happens all the time. And in fact, if you looked at it, it was targeted and it was very deliberate and it was escalating. I mean, and when you see that type of personal attack, that, you know, when you're cutting out somebody's face and you're making collages of it, it seems very deliberate and very bizarre.
Yeah. No, it is bizarre. And in fact, the one that you just referred to, the collage, I mean, somebody put a lot of time into that, whether it was this guy or somebody else. Mm-hmm. You know, even the one I saw the sign that had FU inscribed on it. I mean, that took somebody some time to do. And the fact that that was probably done in broad daylight, I couldn't believe on that surveillance video. I mean, that was done when probably 100 cars drove by. And to not have one person stop and say, what in the world are you doing? I don't know how the guy got away with it without having some sort of confrontation at that point.
Neither do I. And you know, the thing that I recognized, and I did not want this to escalate, we have a lot of citizens that were trying to help us out to protect the signs, to make sure that, okay, if somebody is going to deface it, we can get a license plate, we can get a description, those types of things. But here we know we have an armed individual that's going around Anchorage in broad daylight with a knife, basically cutting up on signs. What would happen if he interacted with a citizen? And I just didn't know, and I certainly didn't want it to escalate. I just wanted the behavior to stop. And thank goodness, you know, we had a peaceful resolution to it. But I think by the video, you can clearly
We just have a minute. Yeah, we just have a minute left, Amy, and I want to make sure, because you've got to go after this segment, I want to make sure that people that are listening need to understand they've got to get engaged in this race. I mean, it's a four-person race, more than that, but four main leading candidates. The vote is going to count. I mean, it's probably going to be a close race. What can people do to get engaged?
Well, turn out and vote tomorrow. You can go to Amy for Anchorage on Facebook or amyforanchorage.com. But there is one person in this race that will stand for conservative values, that will defend your constitutional rights, and I am that person, and I demonstrate that by action every day.
Absolutely. Amy Demboski, she's the true conservative choice in this race. She's making a stand on the important issues. Second Amendment, obviously important to her. Handles things under pressure very well, has a demonstrated record in the Assembly. That's why I've endorsed and I'm supporting her. Make sure that you get to her website, see what you can do, wave signs tomorrow. Stay with us, The Joe Miller Show, more in just a few.